So does the bloody tenet. The magistrate should not send the heretic to the church to heal the heretic. Why? Like mother, like daughter, perhaps he sends an heretic to be healed by heretics. Answer. Master Williams cannot find a church on earth but a false and heretical church to heal a seeker, familist, or Anabaptist. But say it were so. Should not the magistrate, Hezekiah, exhort the priests to teach the people, and deal with the people, who think Baal to be the true God, because the priests do also think Baal, perhaps the true God, which if Hezekiah do, sure he is a miserable physician. But, saith he, the poor heretic disputes with the church, and shall deliver him over to the bloody sword, if he will not yield, as the lamb in the lion's paw, being sure to be torn in pieces in the end. Answer. This author makes ever the supposition of himself, as if he were infallible. We may suppose the heretic is a ravening wolf, and that he is obstinate, and as a self-condemned man disputes, and that the magistrate is the lamb and the minister of God, who loves not to strike with the sword. And the question is not whether he should yield reason and conscience up for fear of the sword, but whether he should abstain from prophesying lies in the name of the Lord, and should say, God sent him to contradict Jeremiah, and to assure the kingdom of Judah, they shall neither see sword nor famine, Jeremiah 14. Notwithstanding, the godly prince, we suppose such a king then in Judah, should assure him that he should be stoned to death, if he shall thus pervert the right ways of the Lord. Should not the magistrate be a terror to all ill-doers, and to such a wolf? There can no argument be drawn from magistrates that are lions and tigers, persecuting the saints of God for the truth, as this author always vainly supposeth. Chapter 25. Whether the rulers, by their office, in order to peace, are to stand to the laws of Moses, for punishing seducing teachers. Judicial laws may be judicial or mosaical, and so not obligatory to us, according to the degree and quality of punishment, such as in Deuteronomy 13 to destroy the city, and devoting all therein to a curse. We may not do the like in the like degree of punishment to all that receive and defend idolaters and blasphemers in their city. And yet that some punishment by the sword be inflicted upon such a city is of perpetual obligation, because the magistrate bears the sword to take vengeance on ill-doers, and so on these that are partakers of his ill deeds, who brings another gospel. 2 John verse 10. Secondly, though Saul's destroying of the Amalekites in that cause was moral, in regard they lay wait for Israel when they came out of Egypt, and so of perpetual obligation, yet the destroying of them, 1 Samuel 15, is temporary, and obligeth not us. First, because that generation were their sons, not those same persons that oppressed Israel when they came out of Egypt, and we may not punish the sons for the sins of their fathers with death. Therefore God's positive command to Saul, and the reason, I remember what Amalek did in Moses' time, therefore kill them, does not oblige us except we have the like command. Secondly, because the slaying of man, woman, infant, and suckling, ox, and sheep was temporary, and cannot have a perpetually obligatory ground in the law of nature or natural justice obliging us. Thirdly, where there is an injury done to God against the law of nature, and against our brethren, in drawing them from serving the true God, and a punishment commanded by God to be inflicted once, that punishment, or the like in substance and nature, must ever be such as obligeth us in the like cases. The learned professors in Leyden say, they can see no reason, but they must oblige under the New Testament. I confess when the fault is ceremonial, though the punishment be real, as the cutting off of an infant not circumcised, and some punishments inflicted on the leper, it is not reason from the law. It is not reason the law should oblige us in the New Testament, either as touching the punishment or the degree, because these punishments for typical faults are ordained to teach, rather than to be punishments, and the magistrate by no light of nature could make laws against unbaptized infants. Fourthly, no man but sees the punishment of theft is of common moral equity, and obligeth all nations, but the manner or degree of punishment is more positive, as to punish theft by restoring 4 oxen for the stealing of 1 ox, doth not so oblige all nations, but some other bodily punishment, as whipping, may be used against thieves. Mr. John Weems, Volume 3, ca. 38, of the Judicial Law, the determination, saith he, in Moses' law judicial, was divini juris, and they had greater force to bind the sons than any municipal laws have to bind subjects now. In regard they were given by God himself. Yet these judicial laws, saith he, commanded the outward man, whereas the moral law called fhop. Deuteronomy 33. This fiery law pierceth the heart. Gammachius saith, judicials and ceremonials are immediately deduced out of the principles of the law of nature, by way of a more remote and obscure conclusion. Aquinas saith, by way of divine determination. But the truth is, the proposition might have some ground in the law of nature, but why 39 stripes, not 40, not 38, only should be inflicted on such an evildoer, and the assumption in many judicial laws seemeth to be an act of the mere positive will of God. Therefore Aquinas saith, ceremonials, primo and per se, first and chiefly were ordained to signify things, but judicials secondary did signify things to come. And Suarez saith, that judicials accessarily and by accident did signify things. It is true, Corinthus, as Epiphanius and Jerome saith, and the Ebonitis, as Irenaeus saith, and the Nazareth, as Augustine tells us, hold that ceremonials and judicials do not yet oblige. Schoolmen deny their obligation, as Soto, Aquinas, Medini, Valentina, Gammachius, because the priesthood is changed. Yet let not us go on with edge conic to say that if it was lawful to make war with any nation for wrongs done to men, how much more for injuries done to God? For making of war is an act of magistracy, and so suppose some jus, some power and authority, that we have either by the law of nature to defend our life, peace, liberties, or for avenging of such heinous injuries done to the nation, as cannot in justice be decided, but by the sword. So that sin, or as great as sins, are not the just cause of war, but sins as most destructive to human society, for which by the principles of the law of nature they may be convinced of fearful breaches. Now these that are idolaters, the nations that worship God in idolatrous way, and being of a strange religion, worship a strange God, though they do the great injury to God that can be, yet in regard they, being other nations as independent on us, as we are on them, and do it not in order to the destruction of our own peace, liberty, and lives, we have not jus over them, nor authority to make war with them, except God gave us a command to destroy them. Nor is this a good consequence. We may by war revenge injuries done to men, ergo, far more by war may we revenge injuries done to God. For war is an act of revenging justice, that supposeth some authority given of God over such a nation as we come out against in war. Number 2. Every just war is some way defensive. In regard, every act of magistracy is an act of defending the peace, life, and liberty of the society, or the members thereof, and a propulsion to violence, by violence, and this is the intrinsical end of magistracy, to hold off unjust violence, by just and harmless violence. For if the life of a murderer be not taken away by the sword of a magistrate, he will still take the life of another man. Quae semel malus, semper malus, presumitur. He that is once wicked is still presumed to be wicked, except his wickedness be restrained. And to offend a nation or person that hath not offended us must be unjust violence and unlawful war. And to make war against a nation that hath worshipped a strange god and injured God and not us, supposeth that we must instruct them of a wrong done to God, by teaching them and instructing them in the true religion. For suppose they worship the works of men's hands, and worship Satan, as some Indians do, and so by their own consciences may be convinced, and so are inexcusable in sora di, before God's tribunal, yet are they not so inexcusable in soro humano, before man's tribunal, as we can make war against them, till we inform and instruct them positively of the true religion. But they that shed our blood and invade our peace and liberties are by the law of nature convinced, and by demands of reparation made to them, quickly silenced, and need not to be instructed in the principles of the law of nature, which are written in their hearts. But it may be said, What if that nation will not be informed of the true religion, and will go on contumaciously to dishonor God and reproach the true God? Shall we not, upon a mere quarrel for religion, make war against them, and avenge the injuries done to God, and defend his truth no less than with the sword we defend our own lives and liberties?